Well, good morning. My name is Jim Matisse. You don't have to remember that. It won't be on the test. I want to welcome you. I'm the current president of the Hall of Fame. I do want to point out you're here on time for class. There will be no people remanded to study hall this afternoon. That's good news. Is study hall still the way they do it back in my days at Central Catholic High School in Portland, Oregon, 1954 state football championship. Back up, tailback, using the Notre Dame double wing formation. Anyway, I will be very brief. Tom pointed out the program, that is your text. The opportunity you have is to, I've got, yeah. Okay. We'll stand by a moment so they can get in.
They may get detention.
Yeah. I guess you handed me something?
Yeah, it said your script.
Oh, okay. I probably won't be doing too much script. Actually, it's 10 o'clock even. They made it on time.
Come on, Fairborn.
Okay, we'll proceed. I will be here very briefly because you've got an absolutely packed agenda. I do want to have two slides. One is to just, hopefully you have been perusing it, remind you of our mission to recognize and honor the greats, which we did last evening formally, inducting 3 new inductees you'll be hearing about and from. Of interest in the program, though, are the people who are representing, at least 2 of the people representing inductees who are deceased. They are greats in their own right, I think you'll find. So you can read a little bit more about them in the program because their bios are in there as well. This morning, our second mission purpose is to motivate people like you by honoring the greats. Their lives, their challenges, their accomplishments, both in societal and economic terms, are tremendous. Over the years, we have enshrined some 71 people, including the 3 the last evening. I think you have walked the hall a bit. There should be also an insert in your book, or if it's not there, we will get it to you, that lists all 71. A little booklet because it really represents the greatest scientific and engineering achievers of all times. Our hall is not a hall for Dayton, Ohio, or even Ohio. It is for the world. Next chart. And my last chart. The medallion, which you've seen images of, Professor Nakamura, I think, has his around his neck, perhaps. It's big, it's heavy, it's beautiful, and what it does is represent the intertwining purposes of both engineering and science. We might add to that the new sciences, if you will, and medicine, the full range of engineering and science specialties. Each operating under its own set of rigorous criteria, but acting together creates, through people like we have enshrined, tremendous benefit to all of mankind, as you'll see today. So with that, I'll have no further ado. Let's have Tom come up and get things started.
Thank you, Jim. First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you Does everybody see their logo up here? It may or may not be the right one. I went out on the internet and tried to get lucky here as to which ones are. Thank you for coming, Fairborn. We gave you a big round of applause when you came in. Sorry about that. But we just wanted to welcome you. We have 8 area schools today, and so thank you so very much for your attendance. We will have a really busy schedule, so your prompt attention is really appreciated. Each speaker will have 20 minutes in which to give their presentation, and then there will be 5 minutes for questions, and we'll have a couple of people roaming through the audience with microphones so that you can be heard. If you don't get your question in, and realize that's not a lot of time, we are, as you know, having lunch. Yay! Yeah. Thanks to the biggest applause yet. And it's off-site. I sent all your teachers a map, and I'll show you one in the last slide as well. So anyway, the speakers, most of them will be at lunch, so you'll have a chance for one-on-one with them at that time. I would like to introduce our host today. You've already met Jim Matisse, but also I would like to introduce Sharon Baumer. If you could stand up, Sharon, from the University of Dayton School of Engineering. And Jessica Short, Director of the Dayton Regional STEM Center. On a side and very personal note, I have to say thank you to both of you ladies, because without your help, this would have never happened the way it's happening today. This is by far the best that I've seen of the Engineering and Science Hall of Fame presentations. So just a few of the basics, some housekeeping issues. The restrooms, as you may or may not have seen, are down the steps. That's the only restrooms that we have. Cell phones must be down and off during the duration of the program, except for photography. All of the speakers have said you may use a non-flash, taking pictures of them as they're doing their presentations. And then lunch, as we said, will follow immediately at Rich Taste Catering, which is located in the Premier Health Building on 2nd and Main. Last but not least, the emergency exits, should there be a fire, other emergency, are right here. You go down the steps and then out the 2 side doors. Okay, I feel like I'm doing an airplane. Our 4 speakers today, and I'm not going to introduce them at this time. You can read a little bit about their bio. Are Carl Harry Knowles, Dr. Shuji Nakamura, Clarence Kelly Johnson, and our special guest, Miss Dasia Taylor. Oops, I went too far. The other thing that I would like to do, I said, no phones. So now I need for you to get your cell phones out. I used to be in sales, so I double talk all the time. Okay, now go to the ES Hall of Fame, ESHALL of Fame. Now that you are on that page, follow that page. As you exit, I ended up moving it, Robin. As you exit, there is a photo booth. Some of you may have already. Did anybody go to the photo booth, take pictures? Okay. Anybody else? Some of you did. Okay, great. But there is a photo booth as you're leaving. If you got a couple of seconds, just run over, get your picture taken, or take your own picture. And what we'd like for you to do is post it then on. How many do we get? 100, all right. The group that I would really like to thank, under the leadership of Mrs. Robin Holweger, please stand up. Back before last year, and it's a very long story short, back before last year, we were somewhere in the dark ages of social media. In other words, we had no presence whatsoever. And just through various networking, I was able to meet Robin, and she introduced me to her class. They are the developers of the Instagram page. They helped us with our web page, work on our Facebook page, so they are really responsible for our social media presence. Thank you so much. So why don't we get into the program here? Our first speaker, who is presenting for Dr. Harry Knowles, is Katy Shirey, who, as Jim said, in her own right, deserves claim as an educator, innovator, and STEM supporter. I'll let her fill you in on all these details. Please welcome Katy Shirey.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everybody. I'm Katy Shirey, and I am here to talk to you about a few amazing things you can do with a STEM degree. So I am a member of the Knowles Teacher Initiative Senior Fellows, and Harry Knowles is the man in your program who was inducted last night. Harry Knowles is super famous for having developed transistors. Who's in physics? Who's seen a transistor? Transistors amplify electronic signals. He used those signals to make the first satellite for the United States, which is still in orbit, the Vanguard 1. He used those signals to make lasers more powerful and made the first handheld laser barcode scanner, the first one, and still the one that you use at the grocery checkout and on the QR codes on your phone, the one that allows you to get tickets everywhere, the one that allows you to buy stuff. So super famous. And then after that, he went on to start a teacher's initiative, the Knowles Teacher Initiative, that I had the benefit of being a Knowles Fellow of when I was a brand new high school physics teacher 1,000 years ago. And so I've been asked to come here today and tell you a little bit about my journey. And I know that Dasia is also going to tell you about how she got into her research and where she's gone with it. I want to open the doors to what else a STEM degree can do for you, because sometimes it's not obvious. So this is from an essay I wrote when I applied to be an astronaut. I want to be an astronaut because I want to educate. I want more students to feel the joy of learning science and participating in creative endeavors within the STEM fields. Spoiler alert, I got to the top 49. I almost became an astronaut with my STEM degree. You might think you need to be a fighter pilot or a medical doctor, but no, turns out a STEM degree will qualify for you for that. And who told me that was my physics students. They came to me and said, Miss Shirey, you can do this, apply. And I was like, oh, scary. I don't want to apply. What if they say no? Instead, I learned to follow my own advice, which I'm going to be harping on today. Apply for everything, always show up and try. My cycles are about teaching, physics, art, relationships. Every teacher in here knows that teaching is just relationship building. Teaching and relationships go hand in hand. Art is my other thing, physics is my other thing. That's led into some engineering. That's led into some astronomy, some nuclear astronomy, some high energy physics, some plasma physics. But really, physics is a love of mine, as is teaching and relationships and art. So like I said, apply to everything, always show up and try. I'm going to walk you through a little bit in the short time we have today. This is me, physics, 2004. Good look, still good look, don't judge me. When I was a physics major at University of Virginia, I was also studying art, and I was making art about physics and doing physics about art. People thought that was really weird. And my physics major buddies and my physics professors were very concerned about my future, not to mention my parents, very concerned. What are you going to do with this physics degree and this art degree? And I saw slides like this, you know, jobs in physics, jobs in engineering, jobs in optometry, in case you wanted to go be a medical side of physics. And I didn't love this list. It didn't have the creative passions that I thought STEM really meant. To me, these seldom mentioned STEM major attributes are humor and confidence and leadership and creativity. Yeah, you can't really get through college without these anyway. I think humor's really important. I think leadership's really important. Creativity really matters. So I ignored the pink list for a while and continued about my way. I made things like cars you could ride on that used torque to power them and used free body diagrams to describe them. After I graduated, I was awarded a fellowship to teach art at the University of Virginia. And I started thinking about not just mechanics of the physical reality, but also mechanics of the body, mechanics of how the body moves. I thought maybe anatomy, maybe medicine, I don't know. This is a walking machine. I thought it was hilarious that the way to make somebody work out could be putting a person in front of them walking, so I built it. I thought that was hilarious, so I kept going. And all of these would have like a physical diagram on the walls, some kind of free body diagram that described what was happening. And I liked teaching sculpture, but I missed the physics. So I cycled back towards physics, and I did my Master's of Teaching in Secondary Education at the University of Virginia. This is from Talk Like a Pirate Day, and my humor was, I thought you said it was Pyrex Day. It went over like that. It went over just like that with my students. Woo! So, but you know what, teachers, you gotta entertain yourselves, am I right? Am I right? So, that was fun. So I taught physics, and I applied for something new. I applied for the Knowles Science Teaching Fellowship. And that was new at the time. It was only about 6 years old. And it meant that you would get support as a brand new high school science or math teacher for 5 years. You might have heard the statistic that over half of new teachers quit their jobs within 3 years. So to get support for 5 years, and I'm talking financial support, travel support, support with grants for materials for your physics classroom, support to go to the conferences and meet other teachers, it was a really big deal. This is me with some other Knowles Fellows in Alaska. High school physics teacher for a while. I really liked it, but weirdly, I missed the art. I missed the creativity. I didn't like being told that students only learn in one way. I thought, well, that's not how I learned physics. I learned physics by making art. How can we do more of that in our classrooms? I thought maybe I want to teach physics and Spanish. So I applied to go to Spain to learn Spanish. And I loved it. I thought, maybe I just want to be a physicist. So I applied to go to the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory as a teacher and learn about plasma confinement, which you will hear later from Dr. Nakamura, is traditionally done with magnetic field confinement or magnetic bottling through this cool thing on the right there. It's a tokamak. Plasma occurs in there under magnetic field confinement. So I was trying on all this stuff. I applied to go to the South Pole with the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, and I was successful in that. I was able to go to the South Pole and learn about high energy neutrino physics. If you haven't cracked that nut, I really suggest going into it. It's an emerging field and very exciting right now, leading to multi-messenger astronomy breakthroughs. If you want to talk more about that, I'm all game. Again, that trip to Alaska was with that group. This is from a mission called Learn to Return. This is evidently the most effective way to wear a trash bag on your head if you're trying to insulate yourself from snow. And arriving at the South Pole Station as the teacher liaison to the Ice Cube Neutrino Telescope was a huge joy in my life, and I got to liaise with teachers and students from around the world. So always apply. That trip also took me to New Zealand, where I got to do some hang gliding. Always, always apply. In follow-up to that trip, I've spent 10 years with the Upward Bound program at University of Wisconsin River Falls, and working with and hanging out with my core group of excellent teacher mentors who taught me to be a better teacher. Taught me to trust student instincts. When students say to you, "Why can't we figure out how fast a fire hose shoots water?" Let them design the thing and try to figure it out. So this is when I learned that I could really trust myself and really trust my students and their interests and what occurred to them. That unleashed my teaching superpowers. I went from being afraid of what would happen to welcoming the unknown and following their interests further and further away from what I thought physics should be, further and further into the fields where I saw their creativity emerge. And that was the whole point. I mentioned NASA to you. I did apply for that on the behest of my students. I did get cool interviews. I did get to go to the Johnson Space Center. I did get 3D imaged to see if I could fit in a spacesuit. I can't. I did get to fly on the cool anti-gravity thing and go into the neutral buoyancy lab. It was cool. And I was just a physics teacher. You can do a lot with this degree. It turns out Shirey was in my group, and he ended up actually becoming an astronaut the following class, which is great. So the next big turn was to start working with engineering. And the reason I did that was because I started seeing engineering as a palatable way to bring creativity to science. How many of you do engineering? Yeah, how many of you do engineering in a science classroom? Some. How many of you do engineering in a standalone classroom? Like the class title is that, okay. So a lot of the way around our country in this time, in 2013, to do engineering was to say we're doing it in science. And people had really no idea what that meant. 2013, let's call that 11 years ago. Do you remember this happening? Maybe you were in elementary school. Suddenly there were engineering design days, engineering challenges, maker days, maker fairs. Teachers might remember this, nodding. Yeah, it happened. So I realized that although I wanted to do creative thinking in science, no one had any tolerance for that, nor could they decide on what that meant. But if you said this word engineering, you got a magical pass to have divergent thinking and convergent thinking come into the classroom. And that was really appealing to me. So I helped some Knowles fellows, again, because Harry Knowles sponsored our work together to come up with a workable model for bringing engineering to the high school science and math classroom, following that divergent thinking, convergent thinking lens represented in our cool diagram that looks like planaria. We were very excited about it. We formed a whole plan to get this thing off the ground, to get liftoff on doing engineering and math and science, knowing that it would open the doors for student creative thinking, we hoped. We talked about engineerizing your classroom, and all of a sudden I was working with teachers around the country at conferences and at standalone workshops because Knowles supported it, because we applied for it, to teach them how to engineerize their classrooms. That inspired me to do a PhD in physics education, where I taught teachers about doing the engineering process in their classrooms. I worked with some teachers at Merlin High School, had a great time there, learned a lot from them, and eventually graduated with my PhD in 2017. After that, I actually worked for Knowles. So the logo there is referential to that barcode scanner. Working for Knowles was incredible. Again, Harry Knowles was alive. He inspired me to learn how to use feedback to amplify efforts in a very physicsy and metaphorical way. Last night, we talked a lot about amplification and feedback, but it is true that by being an amplifier and receiving feedback, you can do more work and more good than without. So I enjoyed that. I kept working with teachers to help them discover how they understood engineering. And in 2020, during the pandemic, I started my own company. What I missed was the art. I missed the clear connection to making art. So I went back to school and became a certified STEAM education specialist. And now I have a company named Katy. And what I do now is I work with teachers and the teachers of teachers to use engineering and art in math and science. I know some people are going to say STEAM later, and I just want to disambiguate. I mean regular STEM with an arts infusion, using artistic principles, artistic practices, and artistic movements. I work now with various bunch of programs. The one on the left there is a grant to use bioengineering as a vehicle to increase the entrepreneurial mindset through STEAM. E for USA, Engineering for Us All. I'm not sure it's in Ohio. Have you heard of E for USA? It's a program that is a no math prereq engineering course and a no engineering background for teachers engineering course. So we train everybody. We have music teachers, we have history teachers, we have students who start at zero with engineering, learning how to do engineering design. And the best part is that it is a reciprocal course for a lot of universities in 11 states. So we're really proud of that. Developed a STEM curriculum in Fairfax, Virginia. Right now I'm working with clients like the Underwriters Laboratories Research Institutes, developing a standards academy to teach students about safety standards. Safety standards, you've heard of those, right? Yeah, no, the UL on the back of everything, the UL stands for Underwriters Laboratories, and if you see a UL in a circle on a product, that means it's certified to meet a safety standard. There's thousands of them. So to teach students about standards is one of their missions, and I'm excited to work on that project. And then I'm working on an AI-empowered search tool for teachers and students to find engineering opportunities around them. That's called the Engineering Navigator. So there's a lot. There's a lot going on. It's really exciting. I also work closely with the American Society for Engineering Education, which is ASEE. I encourage all teachers to come take a look at that. And also, I wanted to tell our teacher friends here about educaty.com. There's a big library of resources. They're listed as free or not free, so it's transparent. But I just think we all need to get together. So in conclusion here, we've got some continued personal and professional showing up, applying for everything and showing up. I serve as the chair for this commission on P12 engineering education. It's service, it's volunteerism, but it augments my professional life, and I think that's very important. So in some ways now my job is all about applying and showing up. Applying to publications, conferences, and grants, showing up to talk to teachers in their schools, showing up and trying to learn from them and with them, showing up and trying to recruit teachers. Personally, I'm trying right now to show up for my friends and neighbors. Getting involved in Colorado, where I've just moved, in the Colorado STEM ecosystem is a way for me to get involved locally. There are still things I drop, though. Like I really, really regret the time I didn't show up to hang out with Scott Kelly. If you know who Scott Kelly is, how did I blow that? That would have been fun. There have been some other memorable failures, like I had a bad interview, I said some bad stuff once in Washington Post, I was incorrect in a quote. That kind of came back to bite me. I did not apply for a teacher trip to Cuba I wish I'd gone to. I wish I'd gone to Kyrgyzstan during the pandemic when I had the opportunity because I was working with teachers virtually there. But hey, you know, we keep moving, keep trying. So it's not all successes, but I like the art stuff. I like the fun, I like the humor. I like making costumes. I like making sewing projects. I like making paintings and trying my hardest. Recently, I made this plastic coat out of packing materials because that felt right. So when you're thinking about what you can do with STEM, we're glad you asked. There's a ton you can do with STEM. It's not just technical. It's not just teaching. It is marketing. It is public service. It is business. And of course, it's all the other STEMs, the medicine, the engineering, etc. Also, you can use your STEM degree in many ways. You can teach people that turbulence is just pressure and density. That's a fun one. I like to say that sometimes I get opportunities like this out of nowhere. I was on a boat to Antarctica once, and someone said, "What do they actually do in Antarctica?" And I was like, I got this. I got this. I can talk about this. You will take science questions from everybody you know. I'm sure everybody in this room is already getting that. You're now an expert because you're in a STEM course. Good for you. That's good. But don't forget that as an expert, you also carry these things with you. You're not just a scientific robot. You have humor, confidence, leadership, and creativity. And you should flex those muscles every time you can. So last words of advice are apply to everything and always show up and try. It goes a lot further than you might think it would. I want to thank you. You are very much invited to be in touch. There's a couple emails here. One is through the knowlesteachers.org, and one is my personal email. Feel free, honestly, to be in touch. There's nothing an educator likes to do better than talk to people and form relationships. Nothing. That's it. Please be in touch if you're curious or interested in talking. I think we have some time for some questions before Dr. Nakamura comes up.
Questions?
Who was Scott Kelly?
Oh, good question. Anybody know who Scott Kelly is? Yes, Dasia. Yes, he's like an astronaut. He spent over a year on the space station. And and Mark Kelly, his twin, is married to Gabby Gifford, and he's in politics in Arizona. Scott Kelly and Mark Kelly were both twin astronauts, and they did studies on their bodies to see if being in subgravity actually changed due to gravitational lensing caused by special relativity. So, like, no big deal. He's kind of a big deal.
LOL. And you, like, missed a text from him? That's crazy.
Yeah, I was just texting with him saying, we'd love to hang out, but all the little Astros are tired and we're going to go back home, which was to the quarantine quarters on the Johnson Space Center, which was cool too. But he was like, good luck. Come back soon. Dang it. Should have made friends with that astronaut. Good question. Thanks for bringing it
up. How many countries outside the U.S. have you been to?
Can't tell you. The usual statistic I say is I've been to 8 continents because New Zealand does not want to be on Australia's continent.
Right.
So there's 8. And the only place in Europe I've ever been is Spain. So most of my something like 45 countries are not in Europe, which is usually where people knock off a lot of countries.
Yeah.
Almost all of Africa, all of South America, a lot of Asia, Southeast Asia, all the Caribbeans, all the Central America, Canada, Mexico.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So if you like to travel,
Hi.
Are you still a teacher now, or are you dedicating yourself to your company?
Good question. Now I am a teacher of teachers and the teacher of teachers' teachers, which when I substitute teach now, which I still like to do, I try to put that diagram on the board and say, like, y'all are students, there are teachers of teachers, there are teachers of the teachers of the teachers. That's all real, and I work in that space. I regret not having a classroom, but I like having summer camps, so I keep that up. In teacher land, that loses you a ton of cred. I don't know if you realize that, but like, it's kind of, you gotta hide yourself in your collar a little bit and say, I don't have a classroom. Yeah.
What was your favorite country?
My favorite country? Well, I tend to love Spanish-speaking countries. I speak Spanish pretty well, and I enjoy that. Ecuador really surprised me because I didn't know it had cloud forests and Amazon and baby Galapagos that I could afford to go to. New Zealand was a real surprise because it's like all of America's geography packed into a thing that's easily navigable and drivable. Yeah, so I guess those 2.
Yeah. Bill, you got one behind you. Probably last question.
Okay.
What type of big projects do you think you want to do in the future?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah, it's not an end of the road situation for me. So first project that I haven't completed, but I know I need to complete, is a book about this STEM program I've been working with for 10 years. Believe it or not, working with a group for 10 years on an integrated STEM curriculum. It's 3 years, 4.5 hours every other day, STEM challenge-based, PBL-based, based on the global grand challenges for engineering. And we have never shared it with the world, which is a huge regret to me. It's so cool. I cannot wait to get that on paper. But otherwise, working with the American Society for Engineering Education, we're trying to break through the alphabet soup. We're trying to get all educators into a virtual room so they can understand each other. We were just talking about Kumo. That might be a way to do it. Engineering Navigator might be a way to do it. Yeah, and then I've just joined the board of Advocates for Summit County, which is a group that supports women and families in domestic violence situations, and that mission needs a lot of attention, fundraising, and awareness, so I'm hoping to help them. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For your presentation. Thank you. Oops. Jessica? My apologies, your slide for some reason or other is not on here.
That's okay. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Jessica Short, and I have a few different roles, but I'm going to kind of tie some of them together. So I serve as the director of the Dayton Regional STEM Center, which is exactly as it sounds, promoting STEM education, work mainly with training educators across the region, not just in Montgomery County. But within that, I serve as the chief of operations for the DoSTEM ecosystem. Has anyone heard of the DoSTEM or ecosystem? That's okay. Yeah, well, I hope so. Thank you. So these STEM ecosystems, we are one of 5 in the state of Ohio. We are one of 110 across the country, and then an additional 14 in other countries as well. And just like a biological ecosystem, it's bringing together all of our different partners and players in the region to enhance STEM opportunities for students, educators, and our community. And so I'm super honored that I get to work with all of you and your teachers to bring about those opportunities. I had a opportunity platform that I encourage all of you to visit called Do STEM Near Me. We are trying to bring about enhancing STEM opportunities in our region that we want you to interact with, but that is okay. And I want to do a little activity because I actually live in Chillicothe, Ohio, which is about an hour southeast of here. It's in Appalachia, Ohio. And I was brought here because there wasn't a lot of opportunities where I was teaching. In fact, I was told that my ideas were a little too progressive at the time and that I would benefit in a larger population. I found myself as a high school principal at the Dayton Regional STEM School for 5 years, and I have loved Dayton ever since. And I don't think we appreciate or understand all of the amazing things that Dayton has to offer. So I want to do a little activity very quickly. Everybody stand up. This is your break, your brain break. All right, when I say something that resonates with you, you have to sit down. This morning, if you had a can of soda or another drink, hopefully not an energy drink, but I bet maybe some of you did, take a seat. Excellent. Energy, yeah, if you had to use a can for your beverage, take a seat. If you purchased gas, coffee, anything along those lines this morning, please take a seat. If you purchased anything this morning, please take a seat. That's fair. All right. This one maybe not for all of you, but if you had to fly to get here, please take a seat. Awesome. All right. If you drove to get here, please take a seat. Or rode in a bus, take a seat. Finally, if you have one of these, a smartphone with an LCD screen, take a seat. Did I get everybody? I hope so. You're welcome from Dayton. That's Dayton. We use Dayton inventions every single day in our lives. They impact everything. They were found and created right here. We are a city of innovation. You are lucky to be a part of it, and you are lucky, and I'm lucky, that you're the future of it. So thank you all so much for being here. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Shuji Nakamura. for pioneering invention and development of the blue light emitting diode, LED, a major breakthrough in lighting technology which made possible the white light, energy efficient LED lighting in wide use today. Thank you.
Hello? Okay, mic is okay. Okay, okay, next slide. Okay, so today I'd like to talk about development of blue LED, also the nuclear fusion. Because 2 years ago, I started a nuclear fusion company. So at first, my introduction. So basically, I was born in very small remote site in Japan. I was born in the southern part of Japan. It's a very small local city. And also, I joined a small local university, Tokushima University. In Japan, famous top university is Tokyo University, Kyoto University, big city name. No? You have never had Tokushima. It's a very local, small university. And no PhD course, just bachelor and master degrees. So after getting a master degree, I graduated, and also I immediately joined a small local company, chemical company. And chemical company has no background of semiconductor technology. So basically, I worked for a small chemical company, and I developed all kinds of semiconductor technology to develop blue, green, white LED, everything. So after graduation of the Tokushima University, I joined this chemical company. It's small, so okay, and so basically after graduation of Tokushima University, I graduated in 79, and then after joining the company, first 10 years, this is chemical company. So I worked to develop materials, semiconductor materials, which is used for conventional red and infrared LEDs. And I spent 10 years. But already big company making a product, so sales is very poor. Monthly sales are only $10,000. So company no profit. Then company, all of my boss started complaining a lot. You waste a lot of money. So when you can make a profitable product, and you should be fired soon, something, they threatened me. So, and 10 years later, and 88, I became so desperate. I wanted to quit the company. And it's a small company. All of the number of employees about 150. So I went to the chairman. Chairman is a very old person. He's a founder. So I asked him directly. So I wanted to develop a blue LED. Because at that time, all the semiconductor company and the electric company tried to develop blue LEDs. Because at that time, no blue LEDs. Conventionally, red and green is available. But in order to make, we need 3 primary colors, blue, green, red. So blue was missing. So I want to develop a blue LEDs myself. But I talked to my boss, Boss said, okay, you're joking. You know my company. No budget, no budget. Basically, research funding is almost there, nothing. Company was no profit at that time. So no money. Also scientists. Because I just graduated local university without semiconductor technology, no background. And also I have no PhD, so no way. You are not just graduate local. No way, Because at the time, all over the world, all the big companies, like in the US, Hewlett-Packard, IBM, also all of the big universities, MIT, Stanford University, they are spending tons of money. Like also in Japan, Sony, Panasonic, Toshiba, they are spending $100 million, $200 million per year to develop blue LED. In my case, no budget, no science, only one, no way. So just I became so desperate. I went to the chairman's office directly, and the chairman, I want to develop blue LED. It's okay? He said, okay, no problem. and he's almost 80 years old, no? So to wake up, okay, so it's okay. So you give me $5 million, he said, okay, no problem. So that's the reason I could start the Blue LED from 88. And before starting the Blue LED, I never been to foreign country at the time. So I want to go to foreign country, especially United States. So I asked the chairman same time. So I want to go to University of Florida to study the material of crystal growth Blue LED. He said, okay, no problem. So that's why I went to University of Florida 1 year from 80 to 89 to study the how to operate MOCVD, because MOCVD is a crystal growth method which is to grow materials. So I came back to 89, Japan, and I started Blue LED from 89. So only I need 3 or 4 years to invent Blue LEDs. Only by spending only 3 or 4 years, I could win Nobel Prize. It's very easy, Because in the past, many scientists, physics people worked to develop Blue LED using a zinc selenide-based material for past 30 years. They have spent tons of money, lot of science work, 30 years. Nobody could make it. But in my case, just 3 years, 4 years spending, I could invent Blue LEDs. Also, green LEDs. Because at that time, green is very dim, out of scale. Green is so dim. So now also green LEDs are using our technology. So basically, I developed blue and green LEDs, and 3 primary colors available, so we can make any kind of color, white or also all kind of displays. And also laser, semiconductor laser. Probably pointer. This is maybe pointer. Oh yes. So this is a red laser, no? Pointer red. But now using the same technology, we invent blue and green semiconductor lasers, which are now used for all kinds of, things. Okay. So initially, I worked for, after joining a company, I developed these materials, but revenue very poor. But anyway, I developed from nothing to the, material, also devices, everything. So initially, I worked for a company for 10 years, also material growth. At that time, very small company. I had to make everything myself, everything homemade. So this is used for the old technology to make red and the infrared LEDs. So you can see this homemade reactor. It's a small company. Good thing is we had to make everything ourselves. That is very good to understand everything. So LED, so LED basically, we need 3 layers, probably N-type semiconductor and emitting layer and P-type layer. Just basically 3 layers. But for blue LED, missing layers, this emitting layer and P-type layer. So that time, missing layer, these 2 layers. So after developing these 3 layers, I could demonstrate first high-efficient blue LEDs in 92. Yeah. So basically, now, this emitting layer, by emitting layer, we use these materials, indium gallium nitride. By changing composition, we can make red to UV, far UV LEDs. Also, laser similar. Laser is from green to UV. So application, all kind of application. But the big application, is my opinion, is cell phone. So in 90s, cell phone company developed cell phone, but no light, so no display. Because conventional light is incandescent bulb lamp or a fluorescent lamp. Those lamps cannot use cell phone. Cell phone is small, no? So same time we developed the blue LED, white LED. So all cell phone companies came to our company. Then they could start selling a cell phone. Also next is a smartphone. Next I show the AR display. And this is also lighting application. So using blue LED and phosphor, we can make white. The efficiency, this efficiency is 300 lumen per watt. So incandescent bulb lamp is 60 lumen per watt, more than 10 times, almost 20 times now. And fluorescent lamp is 70 lumen per watt, almost 4 times. So by replacing all conventional lighting with LEDs, we can save energy a lot. And also interesting, the vertical farming, it's called vertical farming. This is a future agriculture, especially in space agriculture. Still, cost is high. And, but for lettuce, only lettuce is lot of profit, they say. Also, marijuana. So this marijuana is illegal, but in California, marijuana is legal. So most profitable, they say, but it's not good, no? So this is a future smartphone. Recently, Meta announced this way. They use a small LED, micro LED. There's a small, blue, green, red micro LED here, but it's small and transparent. You cannot see it. But we can make a small display. So this is the Meta announced. This is also camera here, and AI is connected. So this is interesting. Is you can see people, and face recognition. Who it's connected AI. So just watch all of history of this person is appeared. So this is a future smart I don't know display. So why difficult to develop blue and green blue LEDs? So there are two kinds of material available to develop blue LED, and so zinc selenide or gallium nitride. So this is a zinc selenide, or this is gallium nitride, grown by MOCVD. So this is dark line is a crystal defect. Zinc selenide, no crystal defect, perfect crystal. So for semiconductor device, we need always perfect crystal. This one. People use this one. People are called crazy. You have to go back to university, study physics, or high school. So all of science, past 30 years, worked for zinc cell, this one. Only few people are working, but all of you people are, called you are stupid. It's true, because all the big companies, they had, project teams to develop blue LEDs, and 10 scientists there, and one crazy scientist says, how about the gallium nitride? Other scientist, oh, you are stupid. You have to go back to study, physics again. No textbook is crystal, lot of crystal detect, poor crystal, no way. So I started blue LED in '89 after coming back to Japan from University of Florida. So at that time I told them, all the people work for zinc selenide because the dislocation, the crystal defect number is much smaller. Gallium nitride is 10 to the 9th, so 6 order higher, no way. So in Japan at that time, there's a big conference in Japan, Japanese Society of Applied Physics Conference. I went there. At first, I went to gallium nitride session. Gallium nitride session is only 2 speakers and 2 audience, including me. And each speaker is 15 minutes. So after 30 minutes later, this session is over. And I went to zinc session. Zinc session is a huge, room, yes, and audience more than 500. I couldn't enter. This is Japan, all over the same conference, same blue LED conference like that, But I told you, I went to University of Florida 1 year, and so I developed this. I worked for this MOCVD to construct this MOCVD with PhD students, and all the PhD students asked me, Nakamura-san, do you have PhD degree? No, I don't have PhD degree. And how about, have you published any scientific paper? I say, no, 0. So then they treat me like a technician, no? In the United States, PhD is very important as a scientist. But in Japan, PhD doesn't mean anything, 0, almost same. So I realized, PhD is very important. So I went back to Japan. At that time, my dream was to get a PhD degree. Because, so at that time in Japan, we could get a PhD degree by publishing more than 5 scientific papers. It's called a paper degree. So I had to, write a lot of paper. So that's the reason I selected gallium nitride, because gallium nitride is only few papers every year, but zinc selenide every year, 500, lots of papers. So if I work with zinc selenide, it's difficult to publish paper, but gallium nitride, it's easy, no papers. So any result, we can write the papers. So I worked for, so I started develop gallium nitride-based LEDs. So these 2 layers missing. So I had to develop two layers. So most important the reactor. So I use the MOCVD method. So initially I purchased a commercial-based MOCVD reactor to grow gallium nitride, these crystal growth. But initially it didn't work for a couple of months. So I had to modify the reactor every day. And finally I developed this two-flow MOCVD. I named it two-flow MOCVD. So this reactor is a homemade reactor, best in the world. So after developing this reactor, any crystal growth, best in the world. Any device, LED growth, best in the world. Laser, everything best in the world. Still, my foreign companies, make a most efficient blue LED, white LED laser because they use this two-flow MOCVD. This is know-how. So it's very difficult to copy it. So that is, after invention of the blue LED, I just win the Nobel Prize. So next is, nuclear fusion. So I co-founded, blue laser fusion in November 2022. This is very important because 1 month later, I took it later, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, December 2022, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory achieved a big breakthrough of nuclear fusion. They realized a real nuclear fusion using laser. After started the company, 1 month later. So our company located Santa Barbara, but headquarters is Silicon Valley. But so that's so 1 month later, after I started the company, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and NIF, National Innovation Facility, achieved a big breakthrough, and basically they over the first time to gain also real ignition. But the past 70 or 60 years, all the scientists work on magnetic confinement, tokamak. They spent a lot of money, almost 80% science works on magnetic confinement, still no big progress. Everything expensive because physics says magnetic confinement is the best. So all the science work this way, but suddenly, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory achieved a big breakthrough. Just spending 30 years, not 50, 60 years. So, so especially ITER, tokamak, ITER. 7 industrial countries collaborating to develop ITER, tokamak magnetic confinement fusion in France. They already spent $30 billion, but still a lot of problem. You can see, lot of trouble. But laser nuclear fusion is a big achievement, but still a lot of trouble. This one. So basically, nuclear fission has been used to, power plant, but a lot of problem, especially so dangerous. Safety is the biggest issue. Magnetic fusion, I told you, still no big progress. But the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory achieved a big breakthrough. They achieved the nuclear fusion, but the problem is when they can make a commercialization. That's the big question. A lot of reporters came to the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory to interview. So you achieved a big breakthrough, but when could you make the commercial-based nuclear fusion using laser? They said, it takes another 20, 30 years. The problem is they can make the high-power laser pulse only 1 shot per day, only nanosecond time, only 1 shot per day. So only they can generate nanosecond per day. For commercialization, we need 10 shots per second, not per day. So in that case, we can generate energy continuously. So basically, our company, we got a great idea to make those 10 shots per second megajoule pulse. So basically, using our new technology, we can solve all kinds of problems. So basically, I compared the blue LED development of the laser nuclear fusion. So beginning, 89, I started blue LEDs, and also in 2002, November, we started blue laser fusion. So blue LED, there are 2 materials available, zinc selenide or gallium nitride. And laser nuclear fusion, same, nuclear fusion. 2 major methods, magnetic confinement, MCF, or laser ICF. My major scientists follow the physics at that time. For past 30 years, 90% of scientists selected zinc selenide. And for past 70 years, 80% science have selected MCF, magnetic confinement. What does the physics say? Physics says the zinc cylinder is best. That's the reason science selects zinc cylinder. And physics says the MCF is the best, That's follows the physics. But the most important thing is that to achieve the big race, you have to take a risk. So I selected gallium nitride. So, and a couple of years later, I could invent blue LEDs. Also, same thing happened. So ICF is now, demonstrates the fast nuclear fusion. Just spending 30 years. So, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, do we have questions? One right here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Nakajima, for your discussion. The LEDs that you developed, with the advent of blue, the three basic colors is the reason why we have LED TVs these days. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, blue and green, I developed. So red is conventional. Red is developed nickel holonet, But blue and green are using this garnet-based materials.
You're trying to relate this to nuclear fission.
Nuclear fusion. Yeah, nuclear fusion, we don't use semiconductor laser, conventional solid-state laser. But long time, we like to use a semiconductor laser because much smaller size got much smaller and more reliable. But it takes time. So right now we use a conventional solid-state laser, but we developed a totally new idea to increase the laser power almost 100,000 times.
Okay.
We have one right here. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Robinson. I'm a Dayton Chief Science Officer from Trotwood-Madison High School. And my question for you is, when you were inventing the blue LED, did you ever believe that it would come like this far to be involved in this many projects?
No. Because at that time, LEDs used for the pilot lamp using a red LED only. So, basically I expect a full color pilot lamp or a full color display, but I never expect use for lighting. Yeah.
Question over here.
Which do you like more, like education in Japan or America?
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Could you repeat again? Huh? Could you repeat again? Oh.
What was better for you, education in America or Japan?
Oh, okay. So I was born in Japan, and the view of the culture, I like Japan. But for the business, no comparison. United States best because in the business, a lot of freedom in US. So, but but in the view of the culture, I was born in Japan, so I like Japan. Yeah.
Question back here. We have another one. Okay. One more. Yeah, we can do one more.
What was the reaction of the scientific community when it turned out that gallium nitride was the way to make a blue LED?
Oh, okay. Because I was just, worked for the local small company. Nobody knows. So suddenly I presented, demonstrated the blue LED at a big conference, and everyone was so surprised. Initially, before demonstration, we did a big press release by newspaper. Nobody believed, because a small chemical company, not a famous company, so nobody believed. But I went to a conference, I demonstrated, showed the blue LED. Everybody was so shocked, and it became so famous. Yeah.
Dr. Nakamura, thank you so very much for coming. Thank you. I know someone is wondering. The answer is yes. We do have a new lost and found department. These were left down in the basement restroom. So if you want to claim it now, fine. If you don't want to walk in front of all these people and say, "Hey, I left something in the," I'll just leave it up here, and then you can get it after the presentations. Fair enough? I'm not sure if they belong to the same person or not, but anyway. Okay, our third speaker today is Ed Yielding, who is presenting for Kelly Johnson. I'm going to let him tell you all about Kelly Johnson. I'm going to tell you some about Ed Yielding. Ed is, among other things, a test pilot who holds 4 world's records. There was back in my day, there was a show on TV called Superman. And one of the things that they said about him was, you may have heard this before, faster than a speeding bullet. Kelly Johnson created planes that went faster than a speeding bullet. So I'll have him tell you about some of the records that they had gotten. So without further ado, I will go ahead and present Mr. Ed Yielding, presenting for Kelly Johnson. Yep. That's your clicker if you need it.
Well, thank you. It's so good to be with you today. I really have enjoyed the other presenters. As a matter of fact, when Katy mentions astronaut Scott Kelly, it reminded me of something amusing that he told me. He said soon after he got back from floating in space for a year, he went for a foot massage, and the lady said, "Sir, you have the softest feet I've ever worked with." And instead of saying, "Well, I just spent a year floating around in space," all he said was, "Thank you." Well, we're so pleased that Kelly Johnson has been inducted into the Hall of Fame here. His airplane designs really contributed a lot to our national defense and our national well-being. I'll tell you some of the things about some of the things he designed. He's best known for the SR-71, which was designed and built in the early 1960s, and it served our country really well for 25 years of the Cold War. Beautiful airplane. It was built to be the world's fastest, highest flying airplane so that it could not be shot down in dangerous areas of the world. So its altitude, maximum altitude was 85,000 feet, and max speed was Mach 3.3. Mach 3.3. So as you know, Mach is the speed of sound, so 3.3 times the speed of sound. And how fast is the speed of sound? Well, interesting to me, the speed of sound is dependent only on temperature. You would think it'd be dependent on pressure and density as well, but just on temperature. So this constant 45 miles per hour is for air. If you had a different gas, you'd have a different constant there, and times the square root of the temperature in degrees Kelvin, which is, as you remember, Celsius plus 273. And in the stratosphere, where we did our flying, the temperature was almost always minus 56.5 degrees centigrade, and so the speed of sound there is 660 miles per hour. And so Mach 3.3 times 660 is about 2,178 miles per hour, and that's about 1 mile every 1.65 seconds, or faster than a speeding bullet. We really enjoyed Kelly Johnson's autobiography. Really interesting. He has quite an inspiring story. He was born in a low-income family, number 7 of 9 kids in a low-income family up in upper Michigan. He says that they were poor, but not poor in spirit. I really like that attitude. So his hometown was right in here, just below Lake Superior. And then later, he went to junior college. They moved down to Flint, Michigan, in this area, and he was able to work his way through high school and junior college and college. While he was in junior college, he earned money by tutoring math. Then he wound up graduating from the University of Michigan down in southern Michigan. He says that in his young boyhood, they had a library, and he loved going to the library and was especially enthralled with Tom Swift books. He read at that time, about 20 of them, and he was inspired by Tom Swift's and his airship, and that's when he decided he really wanted to become an airplane designer. Now, I was invited to come here by his stepson, John Horrigan. This is John and his family at one of our Blackbird reunions a few years ago. Now, at his home, John showed me young Kelly Johnson's scrapbook on airplanes that young Kelly made when he was 13 years old, and showed me some of the drawings inside in his scrapbook. So young Kelly was at 13, that was 1923, so this was state-of-the-art airplanes back in those days. I especially got a kick out of this article here that he put in his scrapbook. It's an article that says the French have just taken the world airplane speed record away from the Americans at 278 miles per hour. And I like what he's got right at the top there. It says, "Notice," with exclamation points. You can just practically hear young Kelly Johnson imagining, the French taking the speed record, that is just unacceptable, and someday I'm going to design an airplane that will take that speed record, and he certainly did. His airplane still owns the world's speed record. This is what he looked like when he graduated from high school, and then went to University of Michigan, hired by Lockheed at age 23. And this is one of his early major designs, the P-38 fighter, World War II. 10,000 P-38 fighters were built, and it's credited for shooting down about 1,800 Japanese fighter aircraft. This is our leading World War II ace, Dick Bong, with 40 shoot-downs, all with the Kelly Johnson's P-38. Dick Bong gave him permission to have his girlfriend's picture on the side of his airplane, and then after he came back from the war, they got married. P-38. Then another one of Kelly Johnson's designs, actually before World War II started, was the Hudson bomber, an anti-submarine bomber. And there were almost 3,000 of these bombers made, very important for our war effort. And then near the end of the war, he came out with his jet fighter, and that's America's first jet fighter aircraft. It was to counter the German Me-262, so the Germans were ahead of us with jet fighters. And it was featured on the front page of the Life magazine in August of 1945, America's first jet fighter. And then derivative of that was the two-seat T-33 trainer, which is in our museum here locally, the Air Force Museum. Then also about the time that World War II ended, he was able to complete the Constitution, this big airplane built to be a troop transport airplane. And it was used in the Berlin airlift, and also became, several of the airlines bought it, TWA and Pan Am, but it also became President Eisenhower's Air Force One. And Eisenhower painted First Lady Mamie Eisenhower's favorite flower, the columbine, so he had that painted on the front of his Air Force One, beautiful flower. Then in 1954 was the first flight of his F-104, which is America's first jet fighter capable of Mach 2 at level flight. Kelly Johnson is also famous for having started the Skunk Works section of Lockheed, the section of Lockheed that works on secret projects. He is also especially known for having designed the U-2 spy plane and the SR-71, which I was so fortunate to fly for 6 years. The U-2 spy plane was shot down over Russia in 1960. So he decided to build an airplane that would be too high and too fast to be shot down. After the U-2 would be his crowning achievement, the beautiful and at the time mysterious SR-71 Blackbird. The missions were reconnaissance, so we took pictures, keeping a watch on countries that might start hostilities. Carried cameras in the nose and along the sides of the airplane. Our engines were Pratt & Whitney J58 engines. One of the main challenges in designing a Mach 3 airplane is heat on the airplane. So at that speed, even though the outside temperature was minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit, friction caused the skin temperature to average 550 degrees Fahrenheit. So normal aluminum alloys, which airplanes are mostly made of, would get too soft at that high temperature, so they had to build the airplane mostly out of titanium, which is, as you see, is one of the lightest of the transition metals and could take that high temperature. The very first test pilot to fly the Blackbird was Bob Gilliland, and Bob Gilliland became one of my really good friends, even though he was 22 years old, he became one of my best friends. And they asked me to be the technical advisor on the biography that they wrote on Bob Gilliland after he passed away just a few years ago. It's a really good book, very accurate too. Now I'll tell you a little bit about the personal life of Kelly Johnson. He was married, had 3 happy marriages. First marriage of 32 years until she passed away with cancer. Then second marriage of 9 years until she passed away with diabetes, unfortunately. And then his third wife, Nancy, they were happily married 10 years until he passed away at age 80. When he was 53, he bought a 2,000-acre ranch in Southern California. All 3 of his wives loved being on the ranch and riding horses. They liked to ride horses together. He had 200 head of cattle on that ranch. And his stepson, John Horrigan, told me he especially enjoyed working at the ranch with Kelly Johnson. That's John when he was in his mid-20s with the long hair there. And he said that Kelly even taught him how to brand the cattle. Now, after flying the Blackbird for 4 years, I applied and was selected to be one of 2 Blackbird test pilots down at Palmdale. Really enjoyed that job, working with new things, new software testing for the airplane. In the middle is Ben Rich, who took over the Skunk Works after Kelly Johnson retired. Now, when the Congress voted to retire the Blackbird in late 1989, Ben Rich requested from the Air Force that we fly an SR-71 down to Burbank along the flight line there for all the thousands of Lockheed employees who had spent so much of their careers working with the Blackbird and other airplanes. So I was very fortunate to be asked to fly to Burbank along the flight line for the Lockheed employees down there. And Ben Rich told me that they wheeled Kelly Johnson out in his wheelchair. So I never got to actually meet my hero, Kelly Johnson, but I got to fly in front of him. And Ben Rich told me that Kelly had tears in his eyes as we passed by lit the afterburner and rocked our wings as a goodbye signal to the Lockheed employees. Then a couple of weeks later, our commander invited Air Force families up to Palmdale to watch our last test flight up there. And then afterwards, landing, signed a lot of autographs. And here I'm signing an autograph for Kelly Johnson's stepson, Sean Ganzel, who now works at the Skunk Works, which has now been moved from Burbank up to Palmdale. Then the Smithsonian Institution wanted one of the blackbirds since they were being retired, and I was asked to, well, actually the Smithsonian wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Air Force and said, when your pilot brings the airplane to the Smithsonian, please have him set an official coast-to-coast speed record. That'll help call the public's attention to what a great airplane it's been for our country for 25 years. So JT Vita and I were ordered to set a speed record. So our plan was to take off from Palmdale, fly up toward San Francisco, join with 2 KC-135 tankers, get a full load of fuel, light the afterburners, and get a 200-mile running start. The NAA, which monitors and verifies official records, had representatives on both coasts and in several cities along the way. So they started the time when we crossed the West Coast. And then when we crossed the East Coast, no airplane has ever flown coast to coast, sea to shining sea, faster than Kelly Johnson's Blackbird did that day. 67 minutes, 54 seconds. That was 34 years ago, and that speed record still stands. Flew along the crowd line at Dulles where we landed. We crossed the East Coast and then turned around and headed toward Dulles where we landed. Light the afterburners, and this is the same picture that was on the front page of the Washington Post the next morning, along with a really nice article about Kelly Johnson's airplane and its service for our country for 25 years. I'll never forget the emotions climbing out of the cockpit, shaking hands. JT and I were both excited because we had just set some speed records, but mostly feeling sad because that was going to be our last ever Blackbird flight and the last time that beautiful airplane would ever fly. That's the crowd line, and there was a short ceremony as the Air Force passed the airplane over to the Smithsonian. They presented JT and me with coast-to-coast speed record certificates, which we really appreciated, but we both know it's really the Blackbird's record. And when I say the Blackbird exists because of people. So it's all the people that designed and built, maintained, supported, and flew the Blackbird over its 25 years of service. So I feel that everybody who had any support for the Blackbird are also part owners of its speed records. That plane that we took to Dulles that day is now in the center of the Smithsonian's Udvar Hazy Center out near Dulles Airport. And they have put my pressure suit, and it's an honor to have my pressure suit on display in the Air and Space Museum near the Capitol. So that's Kelly Johnson and his wonderful career. We're so thankful that he's been inducted into this wonderful Hall of Fame here, Engineering and Science Hall of Fame here in this historic building. So thankful that he's been inducted. I would like to, and he's served our country so well, and with his designs have made our national defense stronger from World War II onward. And improve the quality of our lives in a number of ways. I'd like to finish with a 6-minute tribute video of Kelly Johnson. This is an unofficial video. It was put together by one of the Lockheed photographers on his own, put it together, and so I'll close with this 6-minute video.
Dear Kelly, you and I have never met. I'm not a former SR-71 pilot or RSO. I wasn't a member of your design team at the Lockheed Skunk Works or on the assembly line that built the Blackbird. Nor was I a member of the Air Force at Beale, Mildenhall, or Kadena, who kept the Blackbirds flying. I'm not even an airplane buff in the classic sense. I'm just a person that had the privilege of being around your SR-71 Blackbird, and it was an experience I will remember intensely for the rest of my life. There's just something about your Blackbird, Kelly, that words don't adequately describe. Anyone who has been near a Blackbird and felt its presence knows what I'm talking about. It's a feeling in your gut, and instantly you want to be part of it. Part of what I call the Blackbird family. Today, Kelly, you are being honored for your design work on the SR-71, and justly so. To me, the SR-71 is not only your greatest aircraft design, it is perhaps the greatest aircraft ever built. I've heard it said that you considered the Blackbird the most fascinating challenge of your career. No wonder. It was a design that was so advanced that everything that touched it had to be new. New manufacturing processes, new tools, new materials, a whole new approach. You built an operational stealth aircraft a decade before most of the world had even heard the term. It was a design so far ahead of its time that it retired before time could catch up with it. In times of crisis, the Blackbird provided 6 presidents with a unique and critical view of the world. The Blackbird served this country for just over a quarter of a century. In that entire time, it stood in a class of one. To me, the Blackbird is much more than a technical marvel. It's an airplane that gets inside you, an aircraft that causes the adrenaline to flow just by looking at it. Kelly, your Blackbird is the stuff dreams are made of. It's the model plane sitting in a young child's room, proof that everything is possible, that the sky isn't the limit. And it's the poster hanging on the office wall of a middle-aged engineer, testimony that yes, even in the real world, miracles do occur. The SR-71 embodies all that excites people about aerospace. Its crew seems part pilot, part astronaut. The Blackbird itself appears part airplane, part spacecraft. The typical Blackbird fan is a cross-section of America. It's your grandfather, your niece, your son. It's the wide-eyed young kid that buys an aircraft book at the National Air and Space Museum. It's the family that traveled hundreds of miles to an air show just to see a Blackbird in person. It's the people on the Air Force base that stopped what they were doing to watch an SR take off. Everyone, every time, no matter how many times they'd seen it before. And it's the pilot who last flew the Blackbird 20 years ago, who has the look in his eye that says, I flew the best aircraft ever made. The look that can barely contain the desire to get in an SR just one more time and light the burners. When Blackbird 972 made its final record-setting flight to Dulles Airport, I watched the television with mixed emotions. This was the Blackbird's final flight. An aircraft that was the very definition of speed and power would fly no more. But my sadness was tempered by the knowledge that this plane would now truly belong to the nation, coming to rest in the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum. Now millions would be able to do what I had done, be near a Blackbird, be part of the family. Kelly, in the years to come, whenever I want to experience your airplane's majesty, I will remember the time I spent with your Blackbird. The smell of JP7 fuel, the feel of it on the soles of my shoes, the sound of an air starter wind up, the TEB ignite, and I'll put on the film that we shot during those incredible weeks in 1987. I'll watch it, feel it, be part of it again. Because in movies, Kelly, like in our memories, your Blackbird will fly forever. Congratulations, Kelly, and thank you. Devin Hawker, Assistant Cameraman, Blackbird, the movie.
Do you have time for questions? Or I know they're getting ready for a break.
Yeah, that was a truly inspiring film.
Yeah, thank you.
Because he was a truly inspiring guy.
He was.
Are there, we do have time for a couple of questions.
Hello, my name is Dalen, and I'm the Chief Science Officer representing Dayton Early College Academy. I just wanted to ask, so like I saw like by the video that there were a lot of people who were excited just by getting the chance to see the Blackbird like fly and take off. I wanted to ask like, what was it like in comparison? You actually had the chance to get in it, right? I wasn't like, did you ever have to like just take a moment to like, was it in comparison to all the other planes you flew, or like how, was there just like a moment where you gasped at like how fast it was able to go, or like did you have to get used to it for a second?
Would you repeat the last line? Was there ever a time when there was ever a time what?
Was there ever like a moment like where you just gasped and you had to like, in comparison to the other planes you like flew, like did this plane like, did it really like stick out to you, like the way that you had to fly it in comparison to the other ones?
Well, I love flying the airplane. Actually, I've loved flying every airplane I've ever flown. Anything that flies, I like it. But it's an exciting airplane to fly. The Phantom that I'd flown before was mostly low altitude, high speed work, and I really enjoyed that also. But being up really high above 97% of the air molecules, it was exciting. You could not feel the speed so much because we're so high and there's no clouds going by the cockpit. But looking outside, I could see a slight curvature on the earth, but more noticeable than the curvature was how dark it was overhead. We're above 97% of the air molecules, so it was very dark overhead and then a bright band of blue on the horizon. You felt like you're at the edge of space, although we were a long way from any orbit. We were only 15 or 16 miles high, but you had the feeling of being at the edge of space, and it was a dream come true. I'd hoped to fly the airplane since I first learned about it when I was 15 years old, so it was a dream come true. And I was so fortunate to realize that dream, but I'd never, in addition to the dreaming of flying the airplane, it never occurred to me that I would get to be friends with the very first test pilot that ever flew the airplane, so that was really, really special as well. Did I answer some of your question? Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Do you think it's possible for someone in the present day to beat that plane?
To beat the record?
Yeah.
Well, records are set to be broken, and so I'm sure that it will happen someday. The main challenge right now is finding materials that will withstand the high temperatures that develop when you have a high-speed aircraft in the atmosphere. So that's, and materials for the jet engines as well. So material science is one of the key issues for going even faster. But it's by the way, it's speed and altitude records for level flight were set 48 years ago. The absolute speed record for level flight for an airplane is 2,193 miles an hour, and the absolute altitude record for level flight is 85,069 feet. Those records will be broken someday, and they're overdue for being broken. Those are 48 years old now.
Thanks for your presentation. Do you recall when you made that historic flight, if you came through the Dayton airspace? I seem to recall a sonic boom the day that it happened. I thought that you came through this airspace.
Let's see. Yeah, we set several city-to-city records as well. So from our coast-to-coast to Washington, D.C., we flew a near circular, the circular route, which is the shortest distance between 2 points, took us over several cities. And so we set a Los Angeles to D.C. record, which is 64 minutes and 20 seconds, and then a Kansas City to D.C. record, which was 25 minutes and 59 seconds. And then St. Louis to Cincinnati was 8 minutes and 32 seconds. So I'm not sure you were able to hear the sonic boom here, but maybe you did.
Maybe I was in Cincinnati at the time.
Okay, so that was on March the 6th of 1990. Yeah, feel free to come up to me and ask questions. I'd be glad to answer your questions, and I'm looking forward to lunch with you. Thank you.
Because we like to get you over there earlier. Oh, okay. I can ride if you want me to. Okay. Yeah, let me get you hooked up with who's going to take you. Okay, I'd like to ask, there she is. Hey, Sharon. Sharon is going to introduce Dasia Taylor.
Good morning, good morning. I am Sharon Bomer, and I am a STEM educator. I am a faculty member in the School of Engineering at the University of Dayton. So I hope after hearing all of these incredible stories in STEM today, it will inspire many of you to consider an engineering career. After this, outside of the doors, I had to take this opportunity to put a plug in for the School of Engineering because we have a very highly ranked School of Engineering right here in Dayton, Ohio. So once you leave today, I have information right outside the doors where you can get handouts to please look over to consider University of Dayton. Now, what you came here for, let me get to it. I am so honored to introduce your last speaker for this morning, Miss Dasia Taylor. I first became aware of her story. Where's Miami Valley School? Woo! Through the Miami Valley School. My daughter attends there, and her 6th grade teacher gave them an assignment to read about Dasia Taylor. So my daughter was doing her homework, and I became intrigued by this young lady, and so I went to do my own research about who is she, what is she doing. So once I read her story, I immediately, as a trustee for the Engineering Science and Hall of Fame, I went back to the board and said, listen, I think we need to add a student inventor honoree to our roster of lecturers. And then immediately Tom Masbaum and Jessica Short, who are also members of the board, immediately got on board with me. We came up with a plan. We went to work and we presented it to the board, and the board agreed. Let's add a student honoree to our slate. And that's how this all came about, and we have Dasia here with us. So who is Dasia? Dasia Taylor is a trailblazing STEM advocate, S-T-E-A-M, STEAM, I guess that would be. And she says that M stands for medical technology. She says she's a sneakerhead. I had to explain to my colleagues what's a sneakerhead. I'm sure all you guys know what is a sneakerhead. And a technology innovator who has been nationally recognized for her scientific achievements. As a high schooler, at your age, at 16, she gained national recognition for prototyping a suture capable of identifying developing infections, showcasing her innovative spirit and dedication to improving health care. Now, her journey has been widely shared across multiple national platforms, including the Ellen DeGeneres Show, PBS NewsHour, CNN, the Smithsonian Magazine, the Washington Post, and People Magazine. In recognition of her remarkable achievements, Dasia was named the 2023 Iowa's Woman of the Year presented by USA Today. And we are so honored to have Dasia with us, so please join me in welcoming Dasia to the stage.
All right. Good morning, everybody. You see, I have some props. We'll get to that later.
turn this on. Can you guys hear me over the speaker? Yeah. Solid. Okay. Well, I'm told that I am what's holding us between this and lunch, so I will make this fairly quick, but I do want to start by just thanking you guys for having me today. Truly, without the work of Tom, Sharon, Jessica, I love you guys, I would not be on this stage. So let's give it up for them, because they completely deserve it. So, I need to update my bio also. I also gave a TED Talk last year, but yeah, I do some really fun stuff within the STEM space, and I'm just a few years older than you. I turned 21 in August, and when I was a high schooler, I was very intentional with making every single day count. Every single day. As Katy alluded to earlier, just apply, just do it, just start. My advice is going to be along the same lines. As a sophomore, I was 15 years old. I'm a little young for my grade. I was given a chance to speak at Harvard University, and I took it. It wasn't about science. It was about a different aspect that I was working on at the time, but Harvard nonetheless. And I was scared. I didn't know. It was my first time really doing intentional public speaking, going to a conference, being invited to a conference, but I did it. And that conference led to another conference later that year, and there I was, the high schooler who came to represent their school at some of the most prestigious schools and universities really in the country. So my story that you guys are somewhat familiar with, especially the social media team, starts with me raising my hand in class one day. In fact, raising my hand in class one day quite literally changed my life. And if you don't believe me, then you weren't really listening to what Sharon said. I did all of those things for real. But I raised my hand in class one day and stepped completely out of my comfort zone. I'll tell you a little story. I was taking chemistry honors my junior year, and my chemistry teacher came in class one day and said, hey, I'm the science fair rep for our school. If anyone has any interest in joining the science fair, raise your hand. And I had no experience with joining a science fair in any form or fashion. The only experience I had with science fairs was watching those Disney Channel episodes where somebody would build something and it would blow up the school and then they'd win a blue ribbon or something like that. But that was all I had. And nonetheless, my hand shot up like a bullet. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And so my teacher, she pulled me aside later that week and she was like, okay, and she asked me some really daunting questions. She was like, well, what's your research area? What do you wanna go into? And as any normal student would do, they would probably say, oh, I'm interested in this area of science and this, that, and the third. I did not do that. I actually explained to her my love for Grey's Anatomy and how I was inspired by that to do something in the healthcare sciences because Miranda Bailey and Meredith Grey have my heart. And I was like, oh yeah, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And she was like, okay, I've never had a student come to me and say they were inspired by Grey's Anatomy, but okay. I garnered all of my knowledge that I had from previous classes that I had taken, specifically AP Human Geography, where we were talking about surgical site infections and just infection rates across developing countries and how it's a really prominent issue. And I took that knowledge and the desire to do the science fair and the desire to be an innovator, and I made it count. I ran with it. And in about 6-7 months, I had a prototype, and I entered it into this really big science fair, big relative at the time, because it was my very first one. And I submitted a 20-page paper. 20 pages. I've never written anything as extensive as that in my entire life. Who here has written a 20-page paper? Okay, well, you're better than me. You're better than me. Because at that time, I had never written that much, and I was like, okay, well, this is all that I got. This is all I got. And I submitted it with pride and with passion, and I put my entire heart into it, and I was selected to do an oral presentation at the symposium at the University of Iowa, which is a little bit of foreshadowing. I did the presentation. Many of the kids that I was going up against had been doing this competition for years. I was a junior in high school, right? And these are folks that had won freshman year, sophomore year, and were now competing on the same level with me as a junior. And it shook my confidence a little bit. Not to mention, I was the only person who looked like me in that room. And I went, I held my head up high, I presented my research, and I won first place. Now, that gave me enough momentum to go and submit applications to other local science fairs, regional, state, had a great time. This also happened to be 2020, so I was doing all of these competitions in my living room. Like, literally, it was so, guys, the setup was ridiculous. If I had a picture, it would, I wasn't gonna out myself like that. But those were the days that I really put the pedal to the metal, and I was like, I am going to make COVID count. I'm in the house all day, I have this research, I have this opportunity, and I'm going to do it. Like, I'm gonna cross the finish line. And sure enough, I was in these Zoom calls with these different judges and ended up winning first place in several different categories in science fairs. I get to the state competition, also virtual, and I win second place, which isn't terrible. However, I did go up to my room and cried my eyes out. You can laugh, that's fine. I certainly was a crybaby. But I went up there and I was like, well, I gave it my all, I did all of these things, and at the same time, I only got second place. Like what even is this? And I got a lot of feedback from the judges, and I ended up applying that to one of the biggest science competitions that I have ever done in my entire life, called the Regeneron Science Talent Search. How many of you have ever heard of that before? No, okay. Really big opportunity if you're into STEM and research. The Regeneron Science Talent Search, which I feel like is renamed, some different company is sponsoring it now, is the most prestigious science competition for high school seniors. The most prestigious, and they mean that. They churn out some phenomenal scientists. So if you're a junior and thinking about doing research, that is a really big opportunity that you can take, and that will really help your college applications, FYI. Out of 2,500 applicants that year, I made it all the way to the top 40. I was a top 40 finalist in the most prestigious science competition. Now in this one, same deal with the other students, except they had been doing this earlier in their lives. They started in the 6th grade with the elementary competitions, and then continued with the middle school competitions, and all throughout high school. And I could have looked at that and said, you know what, I don't deserve to be here. I could have, but I didn't. I held my head up high, I presented my research yet again, and again, 2,500 applicants. I'm not a really big mathematician, as you can see, M stands for medical, but the odds are slim, especially given I was the only student out of Iowa. This was my very first year doing any sort of competition that this company and this organization sponsored. The odds were very slim for someone who looked like me with that background to make it all the way there. And by 17, I started to become famous for my invention. In fact, I'm currently going viral on some random Instagram page. I will always be immortalized as a 17-year-old. They will never let that meme die. But my joy comes from being in the lab and doing my research and continuing the journey that I started in my teens in high school, which you currently have the opportunity to do. I raised my hand in class one day, and it literally changed my life. I want that to sink in. I want you to really, really understand that. My teacher is one of the most phenomenal human beings that I've ever had the opportunity to learn from. In fact, we still stay in contact today, and we do keynotes around the country, and we get to visit different monuments and whatnot, and museums, and talk about the work that we do. And that has actually yielded itself into some really fun STEM education things that really kind of brought me here today as well, i.e. my props that we will get to in a minute. So if there is one thing that I really want you to take away, it's that, raise your hand and seize the opportunity. But also, intrinsically, I want you to know that you don't have to wait until you're 20-something or 30-something to change the world. This was something that I basically stumbled into. I stumbled into it by accident. I raised my hand, right? But I was like, okay, we're gonna do this even though I have no experience. You can do the same thing. And the good thing about you being young and starting now is that you are allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to stumble and fall and get back up again, and you have the luxury of time in which you can do that multiple times and eventually get it right. So I really, really hope that, that you guys hear me and hear my story in that aspect. And again, raise your hand in class. Your teachers are there to help you. I would not be here if it weren't for my chemistry teacher and several other teachers that have molded the person that's standing in front of you today. So, so those are my official remarks, but I do have an opportunity because we're gonna do some fun science stuff. Is Aiden here? Hey Aiden, do you want to come up on stage with me? Okay, and then the person who said hi to me in the hallway, is that you? Okay, come on. I didn't know you guys were from the same school. All right, we're gonna do some science. Is my lavalier working okay? Can you guys still hear me with this? Yes. Okay, all right. So a few months ago, well, really starting in about May-ish, I started working on an idea for a STEM kit. Something that you guys who really enjoy what I have to say and really enjoy like workshops that I put on can continue the learning at home and continue exploring these STEM concepts at home. So first and foremost, everyone here I believe is leaving with a STEM kit, which is very, very exciting. Thanks to some wonderful grants and some wonderful partners that have been able to make that happen. But I'm gonna walk you guys through one of the experiments today with my friends. Okay, so you're Aiden, I met you last night. What's your name? Mohammed, period. Okay, so first things first, and this STEM kit is so simple that I literally started it last night in my hotel room because I knew I didn't have much time today. So read this, it does say AC Hotel. AC Hotel, right? Yeah, okay, so started it in my hotel room. You can do this at home, okay? All right, so in this bottle, I have sodium alginate and sodium alginate and water, okay? Does anybody know what sodium alginate is? No, it's a powder derived from seaweed, actually, and it's a thickening powder. So if you guys take that, if you shake it, how does it feel?
Like hand sanitizer.
Yeah, LOL. It does feel like hand sanitizer. It's very gooey. Pass it to Muhammad. Yeah, like, does it really feel like water necessarily? No, it's very, very thick. It's a very thick, when I do this with little baby students, they say it feels and looks like snot. So Muhammad, I'll take you first. I have a pitcher of water and a glass. Could you pour a little bit of water into this one, this water? Pour this in there? No, this one in here. About, 3/4 of the way, not too full. And then in my kit, I'm gonna grab some of my other materials. We've got calcium chloride, okay, and a popsicle. Ooh, hello. A popsicle stick, all right. Would you do the honors of pouring the calcium chloride into the cup? Absolutely. Awesome, all right. Just gonna pour as much as your heart desires, really. All right, actually, I'll hold it up so that you guys can see. Sorry, we don't have a dot camera, so you're gonna have to trust us on this. All right. Solid.
More?
Perfect. All right, so Aiden is gonna spend some time dissolving this, and Muhammad is actually gonna prep the syringe. So we are going to take this sodium alginate solution, put it into the syringe, and then dispel it into that glass, and we're gonna see what happens. Okay? All right. I trust you can do this. I prepped everything. So did you say? Oh, well. This is super lighthearted fun. You got it. Awesome. All right. So feeling good? That's all right. So we're feeling good about that. You feel good about how dissolved that is? Yep. Awesome. And I've got some silverware in my, because I need it. LOL. Guys, I'm such a vibe. I am such a vibe. All right, so I'm just gonna wipe this off a little bit, because again, it does feel like snot. And do you want to do the honors? So you're just gonna dispel it straight in there, just like that. Perfect. All right, so I know you guys can't see. I know. Did you guys see anything happen? No? Did you see it? Starting to turn. Turn what?
And I'm not sure.
That's valid. That's so valid. All right, so because I didn't have time, I'm traveling. I go to the University of Iowa now. I didn't travel with food coloring. I traveled with all of these kits, but no food coloring. So this is completely clear. However, the science behind it is that when sodium alginate, which Muhammad played this character, when sodium alginate combines with calcium chloride, Aiden's character, they create a really soft shell around the sodium alginate, what was in the syringe, right? So in a couple seconds that this happens, right, very, very quick chemical reaction, we get this really awesome liquid worm that comes out of it. Yeah, so this would be so much more fun if we had some food coloring, but we don't, unfortunately. But you guys see what I'm talking about here, right? So you guys can see that, sort of? Yeah. Yeah, so this is called a liquid worm. It's one of my favorite activities that I've done, I don't know, for like 4 years up until this point. And so you guys can give it a whirl. Yeah. LOL. It's fairly durable. It's fairly durable. What's really cool about it is that, Aiden, you can attest to this. Not everyone can see it, but there's a bubble here, and it's kind of filled with liquid. Can you see that? Yeah. All right. So again, it forms a soft shell around the solution that was in the syringe. If we kept this really big bubble in this calcium chloride for longer, the calcium chloride solution would continue to permeate the surface, would continue to go through and through and through until all of the liquid in this little bubble felt almost like rubber, almost like a tire. All right? So you guys can explore that at home. Everybody give Aiden and Muhammad a big round of applause. Thank you, guys. All right. So that's a little bit about what I do and where my passions lie. As I said, I'm a student at the University of Iowa. Go Hawks! I'm a junior studying global health. And also, you can reach out to me as well. Feel free to catch me on Instagram at @theheadnerd. Reach out whenever. I'm here to encourage you. That's what this entire thing was about. I'm here to encourage you and support you in your journey, especially those who want to do things that are hands-on and tactile, fun learning experiences like this. And I'm here to support your journey as you guys become the next innovators of this generation. So I'm proud of you, preemptively. Well, I'm proud of you for being here. But thank you guys so much, and I think we're going to turn it over to questions.
All right. And we're proud of you.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do a couple, and then we're going to head out to lunch.
All right.
I shouldn't have said it like that.
Hey, you're good.
He asked me to stand up, so I'm standing up.
Yeah, go for it. Do you?
Hi, I'm Mrs. Brown from Dayton Early College Academy. Hi. I had a question because you can have an idea, and it can be a great idea, but I was wondering, like, did you require sponsorship or, and is money attached to these programs and awards and first place and second prizes that you got? Like, because you have a great idea, but research is expensive, right? So how did you go about that as a junior in high school, like obtaining such?
Phenomenal question. So my junior year when I first started my prototyping, everything that I paid for was out of pocket, either by myself or by the teacher that, my science teacher at the time. Which she did not have to do, but she believed in me as much as I believed in me, and well, more even. And so she was willing to put money behind some of the prototyping materials that we required outside of the materials within the lab already. As I went into the different science fairs, yes, there is money involved. There are prizes involved. You can get anything from cash money to like internship experiences to medals and trophies or whatever. With the very first check, this is going to be so funny. With the very first check that I got from my science fair, it was a regional science fair. I don't remember how much it was, but I bought a hoverboard. And so, because it was COVID, and we were all stuck in the house. And so I bought a hoverboard with that. And then with my Regeneron Science Talent Search, money actually paid for my first year of college. So yeah, absolutely, there is money involved. In terms of if you don't have those resources, number one is contacting like local companies or organizations that might be willing to sponsor you. You will never understand how many older people believe in young people and like are willing to put their money where their mouth is. I've done a lot of research that way. I've done a lot of live workshops that way that provide hands-on enrichment for kids, for other kids. So yeah, reach out to your local folks that you already know support your schools or things like that. Okay, fun tip, I get all of when I started, I got all of my contacts from looking at the back of people's like sports shirts, because they put all of their logos on the back, right? And so then I went and reached out. Usually the title that you look for is like community engagement officer or something like that. So pro tip. But
Okay.
really good question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, one more.
All right.
So I was wondering, did any of these like awards or like science fairs help you be more eligible for like scholarships to college?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Yes, they do. Especially the Regeneron Science Talent Search, because that's such a big deal. But I mean, most of the scholarships at my university are like just like merit-based or need-based. So like on my resume, like it's not like for scholarship applications in particular weren't like super heavy hitter, but just like my college applications in general, unfortunately. So it's kind of pro con. Yeah. Can I take one more? Go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
I was just wondering if there's like a specific job that you're hoping to go into in the future, or you're just
Ooh. Yeah, so the question was, is there a specific job that I want to go for in the future, or is it just going to be my own thing? The latter. I love my own thing. So I have a couple different prospects on the medtech side. It's just my invention. And then once that is hitting the market and doing its thing, great. And then on the other side, there's the STEM education stuff, which includes these kits, which are a very, very new project for me. And so once those hit the market, great. But until those kind of things run out and I get to do kind of mini projects in between those, I'm satisfied with those two options. I do actually, on the academic front, plan on going to get a master's degree, plan on going to grad school, y'all. So I'm looking at master's in public health programs. So I plan on continuing my education because that's important to me personally, but I plan on continuing my individual projects as well. Great question. All right, I think we're going to turn it over to lunch, but I do have a chemistry quiz to take during lunch, but I will be there because I'm taking 17 hours. So yeah, so I'm going to do that, and then I will be around for anybody else who has questions for me. Just let me know. So.
All right. Thank you so much. You nailed it.